So, hello my wonderful people over there. Today I want to be starting and continuing on the English Mastery or the Project English Mastery series. And the reason for the existence of this video series is for me to become better in the English language and kind of demonstrate the way I think and the way that I can think using this tool. This is the Google Docs using the voice recognition software and a Tula microphone. And we are just going to start over here, and I'm going to ask you some questions and I'm going to explain to you some understandings of mine. I might write some fictional stuff also if I get to that kind of mindset, but lately I haven't been writing so much fiction, at least on this tool yet. So I said in the last video that turquoise level spiral dynamics turquoise level societies exist in outer space, and I'm going to explain this to you, this situation. Can you imagine a situation where you see a society that is so different from the way you have been living your whole life in your own planet, or maybe a city, or maybe a country, that you will feel completely alien in this society if you find yourself in there? You won't be able to function, at least first, in that society because it's so different than what you were used to. What if I told you that societies that like this exist in outer space? That there are actual planets that are inhabited by extraterrestrial beings, and the society is not actually built. It's kind of like nature on this planet. The problem with constructing anything is that the process changes the environment. Do you understand what I'm meaning over here? That turquoise level alien or extraterrestrial societies, they function because the society and the structures and the buildings and all of that the extraterrestrial beings use are not built by them. These beings are not builders, you know? These beings don't build anything. If you think about animals, most animals don't build, you know? Most animals don't build. They live. That's the difference between human beings and like being a human being is always this kind of half-life, because are really living, or are you just building the environment to be some way so you can survive? That's the difference. The basic idea between a human being is that the human being is not designed for its environment. The human being is not designed for its environment. It's not supposed to be there. The human being is not supposed to live in this kind of climate, or at least it's not designed for that. It can survive if it uses its mind power to invent all kinds of tools and the ways to transform and shape energy, but it's not designed for this planet. At least not for some climates, and maybe not for the planet in general. The human being is kind of a misnomer amongst animals. And why is this? Have you actually ever thought about this? Like, why are we here? Have you actually ever questioned it? Well, the system you live in kind of makes it so that you don't have to question it. But when you get there, you know, on a fucking rainy day, and you just kind of like stand around for a bit, and you just kind of realize that holy shit, you know, I wasn't born with a wetsuit, you know. You weren't born with a wetsuit. You can't fly. You can't swim like a fish. Yeah, you can. You can swim, but you can't breathe underwater very long. You can stand a lot of heat. Or cold. It's so minuscule. The Yeah, I wish I would have a girl, but you know, they are all the same. I mean, they're not all the same, but I mean that girls are all the same in a sense that none of them were born with wetsuits either, or none of them were, you know, none of them can stand cold or heat like any better than like most human beings. You know, we can't like travel to the sun. We just can't do it. We can't stand those kind of environments. So it limits of course, the space exploration capabilities of a human being. Of course, it does. This, of course, limits the space exploration capabilities of a human being a great deal. But there are societies, and it's a stupid word to even call them that, but there are civilizations of extraterrestrial beings in outer space that are in themselves closer to animals, that they are so unified with the environment that their state of consciousness is completely different. If you think about, for example, the Jungian or the I actually still haven't read the biography of Carl Gustav Jung, but you know, Jung talked about the uh, like, what is it, like separation of the ego? No, it's like the, well, it's kind of when you think about, for example, like water bubbles, you know, on top of water, you know, they separate from each other and they unify, but they are still water, you know, that kind of stuff. He talks about the levels when the infant kind of realized that I'm kind of separate from everything, and you know, you have to understand that consciousness, it's in like, you have to understand that consciousness in itself existed before you were an infant, you know. It existed in the womb, and it existed before that, and consciousness starts to wear, you know, this ego mask, and the first stage happens in infancy, and it's a natural process for the human being for this to happen, but it can create all kinds of I would say, you know, this neurosis and this kind of stuff, but in itself, even in the healthy ego, it's still kind of, you know, it's far from the truth of maybe the, yeah, it's far from truth. And everything that your society has kind of like taught you is reinforcement of this basic idea. And in a cosmic sense, you know, in this, like, you know, outer space like vision, everything that your society has taught you is so small thinking. It's kind of like squirrels like battling over like freaking acorns. Like that's the level of your society that has taught you, and it's so small. And when you think about it in this cosmic sense, you kind of realize that holy shit, there are beings that aren't this way. There are beings that aren't this way, and that's why we cannot communicate very clearly with animals, and we cannot understand animals very clearly. Animals are like interesting. For example, like horses. Like horses are really like they're pretty funny creatures. Like they behave in the most weird ways, and they clearly have some kind of, well, they have consciousness, that's for sure, but they have some kind of intelligence also. And why is that? I would say that these beings in outer space are kind of the same. They are, some of them. But then I would like kind of speculate that there are also these are more like, I'm not going to any spiritual levels over here. I would say that this is kind of physical stuff, that stuff that we could counter if we just could travel the large enough distances. We could encounter these beings in flesh. We wouldn't have to travel or separate from our body in any way. But yeah, so the Jungian psychology. So they're I would say that these beings' development doesn't follow the same pattern as the human being's consciousness development. So when, for example, these psychologists talk about consciousness development, they are actually talking about the ego starting to wear the mask and limit the consciousness. You could say it's like that. You start to wear this mask, the consciousness, and you forget yourself, that kind of stuff. I would explain it this way, and it's really complicated stuff. When you think, for example, like we human beings can talk about this because we are all the same in this way, that we have kind of went through these levels, but some people have not went through these levels very good, and this can manifest, for example, as alcoholism, as drug addiction, as violent behavior, as criminal delinquency, and sexual like stuff, like for example sexual crimes, that kind of stuff. And it all comes down to the fact, when you think about a society that is like prenatal in its development, it has a lot of these drug addiction, violent criminal delinquency, sexual criminal crimes problems, and it's because the kind of because these are all about boundaries. All of these things I mentioned before are about boundaries. Do you understand what I mean? For example, alcoholism is about the boundaries of the like child have been broken so much that the alcoholic person doesn't know the boundary, cannot enforce the boundary of like not letting this poison into his body. It's a psychological kind of developmental, kind of the same as if we had a plant and the plant was stunted from growing due to like not letting the plant get sunlight, air, maybe water, that kind of stuff. It gets stunted in its growth. And then there are some plants actually, and some environments, and that there's this thing called adaptation. Have you ever heard about adaptation? Well, of course you have. And adoption, but adaptation, an adoptee, for example, about abductee, adaptation. Adaptation and adoption. An adopted person has to adapt to the society he was adopted to, But the fact is that, for example, when you think about the word abduction, like is it like abduction, like abduction? That's the alien stuff where aliens abduct you to do all kinds of funny experiments and take you to unknown realms. When you think about the whole experience of abduction, what is it? Like, what is it? It's breaking of boundaries. Yeah, you see. So, in what kind of persons would this kind of stuff manifest itself most easily? Would they have to be traumatized? Would they have to be, because if you, for example, gain some kind of abduction experiences where you are high on drugs, yeah, it's a kind of understandable like thing to happen in the mind. But then you kind of like have to realize also that there are societies and beings that don't grow in this way. In the same way that all plants don't grow in the same way. We have trees, but at the same time we have, vines, we have, some flowers are different. Yeah, they all kind of grow out of the ground. But you could also speculate that could you like grow things out of, like, for example, the clouds. Could you grow things out of the clouds? Well, you kind of do. You kind of do, actually. And I'm going to ask you this. Like, this is a pretty hard question, and we get to like a really, like that kind of new age type of level that you would probably think if you were high on psychedelics or something like that. And that question is that, is the level of consciousness you are actually now in this moment experiencing showing you very clearly the reality and how the reality actually is, or is it just a representation of the way that the mind and the consciousness is seeing the thing to work in that way? What I mean by this is that, are trees actually growing from clouds if you started seeing it very clearly? That's a whole different topic. Like, can you see it differently? Like, is it possible? Well, for the human being, it's kind of, is it all the same? Well, nobody knows. The funny thing about life is that you have only your own brain giving you inputs. Nobody else is giving you inputs but your own brain. Yeah, you can say that I'm talking to you and you're getting inputs by me talking to you. But the fact is that when you say that, the only person that is getting an input is you. When I'm in the room with you, there's nobody but you in the room with you. You understand. When I'm talking to you or I'm listening to you, I'm not actually listening to you. You understand. Something is going into my brain, or is it This is the freaking hard question, because the brain, you would think, and it seems like that, and it shows like that, and if there's a problem, it's going to like manifest itself in some weird way, you might see dragons in the skies. But what I mean is that you only have your own experience to prove anything to be true or real. You cannot ask anybody to prove you that you're alive. Nobody else can prove that to you. Do you get it? And these beings, these whatever they are not experiencing life like we are. They are not experiencing this way of like seeing the world. They are not seeing themselves as individuals at all. They are literally one mind. These beings are not experiencing themselves as individuals. They are one mind, one consciousness. They don't have individualistic minds. They think by dividing the thought between the bodies, and human beings are really bad at this. Have you noticed that usually in societies the basic values and the basic thoughts are shared? These beings don't share thoughts. They don't agree. They think as you would think one thought, but they think one thought like they think one thought, how would you say, they think what one thought, form, or one thought line with the whole organism, the whole, like they could spread that thought to be thought about to like 5 million separate beings could be thinking about the one issue, And human beings cannot do this very well. That's why the planet Earth is so fucked. Because human beings are really shitty at this. And that's because we are all, grow. When we grow, we kind of go through this as I said, or here that, or Jung said that you go through this individuation, that's the word, individuation. You go through individuation, and when you go through individuation, you kind of you lose the possibility that the brain could work in this way. But the brain actually can work in this way. The brain can work in this way. It's just that human beings as groups are really not geared for this. But it's possible to make it work like that. And I believe that there are secret societies, on planet Earth. Secret societies have cracked and have used and can use this way of using the brain and thinking about all kinds of things that extraterrestrials use just as their natural way of thinking about anything. That's how their minds work, because they have one mind that's separated into huge amount of bodies. Think about a flock of birds. Think about a pack of wolves. Think about any group animal. Do you actually have any clue? Do you have any fucking clue how those animals, like what's life for them? You don't. You don't. you don't even have a fucking clue what's life for your freaking spouse, let alone a fucking dog, let alone a fucking horse. You know? You only know your own experience of life, and you only rely on that. And the consciousness is really interesting, your mind is really interesting, that when you're the most sane, you question the least. You know, you question the least amount, you question so little actually of like your experience of life. Like, it's really funny when you start to question, like, is everybody around me kind of like actually some, program, some meta program in my own mind and my own consciousness that is kind of like just processing life for me, Or am I just a meta process for some other, you understand? Like, how would you like confirm this? What would you do? Like, who would you ask? Like, I could, you come ask me this question. Hey man, I've been experiencing this kind of solipsistic like isolation lately, and I have noticed that I'm kind of thinking that there might not be actually anybody like all the people might actually be these kind of meta programs. Would you confirm that you're not a meta program? I might be just programmed to say to you, no, I'm not, like, that's not, that's insanity, that's insane thinking. I might be just programmed to say this to you, that kind of stuff. Well, you can question it, but what I'm really going for over here, this pretty deep stuff, is that the human brain is not actually limited to be able to think this way, but our technologies and our how we use the world, and there's a lot of blockages in the way society is actually built that blocks us from using our minds in this way. It's really hard to find people who are even willing to kind of converse that this would be possible. They wouldn't even get the idea, and I know I have tried, and I still believe that human beings have got to this level, and it's really possible to get to this level. So I would say that these extraterrestrials kind of like have one purpose, one mission, one task, one whatever it is. And it's subdivided into these processors that are these beings. Kind of like when you want to do anything on your computer, the processes get divided into the processor cores. And if you think about society in its way, like what is it? What is society trying to accomplish? Well, you could say that so it's a survival machine, Okay, it's a survival machine. And then there are companies that are trying to accomplish something. We are trying to build the next iPhone. We are trying to make the next generation of smart clothes, here. We are trying to make cool hats, I don't fucking know. We are trying to make a YouTube channel that, is the raddest YouTube channel ever, and it's going to be taking you to the next level of human development, that kind of stuff. And then there are people who are not willing to do that, who want to do something else. And these beings are not this way because they don't exist in that kind of, they don't, because if you think about the brain, actually, the brain is kind of, there are parts of the brain are dedicated to actual actions of the body, of moving the body. And for example, if you want to make a fire, you need certain brain parts to work, to move your hands, to understand all the variables in trying to make the fire. You understand? So if your brain is structured to be able to do stuff, to be able to be the governor of like doing stuff, then have you ever thought that isn't it pretty clear why life seems the way that that's just how it is, you know? Like for example, there's a lot of people that you could say are not kind of like doing anything in their life, but they are actually doing stuff, you know. They're just not conscious of it in this way. But if you really become conscious of it, what I mean by here is that your experience is matching the structure and the structures of the brain that we have like discovered, you know, through CT scans. But of course, these CT scans we have done, all of the information actually comes through our brain, you know, and through our body, you know. We can't crack out of this matrix. We can't experience life out of our own fucking, you know, out of our own shit, you know. Like, can humanity experience life out of humanity? Well, no, like there's no way. And you get that you can't experience life out of yourself. You just can't. It's impossible. So what will you do about it? Because as I said, there are beings that are not this way. There are beings that are not this way, you know. And all of our imaginations about aliens have been made by the way that we understand our brain. We haven't questioned things deep enough. For example, now when I look outside over here, you don't see this, but and I don't have the webcam yet. But if I get a webcam at some point, I might put it over here and show you some things also. Then I just want you to. I just want to say to you that I'm at the moment looking through the window and there's a sunrise. And the sun is kind of shining through leaves. And just yesterday I was kind of I was walking with this suit in a forest. I took my expensive suit and I slowed it really down because I noticed that, yeah, if I move with this in the shadows, it's not that hot, you know, even the suit. And I saw these birds, and the light kind of show like the light how it shined in the tree. The birds, the wings of the birds, kind of like they got this highlight in them, and I just was looking at the same scene for like 5 minutes, you know, and I saw all of these people just walk past and they didn't even gaze towards the place. And I was kind of like, yeah, like they don't even see that, you know, like they're not conscious of it. It's there, you know, I'm sure it's there, you know, but they're not just conscious of it, you know. And that's what I mean. Something that you're not conscious of if you're not conscious of it, you know, it's still there. That's why it's so interesting that when you encounter some people that are able to like point to you that, hey man, become conscious of this stuff, just become conscious of it, you know, become conscious of your dreams, become conscious of your freaking, you know, hands. What do you do with your hands? Are you even conscious of your hands, you know? Are you even conscious of like what you do with your hands if you are kind of like, for example, like eating Doritos at the moment? Yeah, probably not. But are you conscious of like how you use your hands. Being conscious is not the same as like knowing. You don't being conscious is not the same. It's just the experience of like yeah, that exists. You know because when you become conscious of something, you start existing on a higher level. Uh, I'm going to ask you a question about your life. Do you ever feel that you are only half existing? Do you ever feel that you are not really exist existing 100%? I know I do. And what's this really about? There's something you are missing. There's something you are not conscious of. There are things that make you conscious of this. And in those moments where you become conscious of those things you missed before, you become more alive. You become more conscious. Do you understand? I feel that this half existing is so like normal. Do you get it? It's kind of hard. So, these beings wouldn't think about group dynamics in the same way, and that's why they wouldn't invent something like, World of Warcraft. They wouldn't, because they don't have that kind of. They don't have that kind of, It's really funny actually being an individual in the world in this world. If you really start to think like what is entailed in being an individual on planet Earth, it's one of the weirdest experiences you can have. It's one of the weirdest things that can happen to consciousness actually. Your consciousness could be like subdivided into 100 million planets. You could be like biolocate existing in 100 million beings at the same time in in outer space, but still you're not, and your consciousness is stuck here in this one body. My consciousness, my body is in front of the computer, like thinking stuff, using my brain. I have one still, so I'm going to use it. And I use this, it's called a computer. I have no idea how the thing works, but I'm going to explain to you an experience. It's a really wild, experience. And I'm not sure what's this about, but I feel that this is one of those things that hasn't maybe been experienced by humanity so many times before. And I'm going to ask you a question. Through dreams, can you become conscious of computers? What I mean by this is that can you see? How do you explain it? That's a hard word. Metaphors or symbols of the basic computer memory structure through your dreams. Can you use this same logic to explain reality? That we are actually seeing memory structures. We are actually seeing not the content, but the way reality is saved or reality is processed out of some cosmic memory. If you think about and you look at the trees, you kind of understand on an intuitive level at that trees they have branches, and you might actually be seeing not the real thing. I was listening to this audiobook. H.G. Wells' Time Machine. I actually bought it in English. And I was sleeping at the same time while I listened to it. I do this sometimes. Yeah, at the moment I don't have headphones, so I do it less than I used to. But I used to like listen to a lot of music and audiobooks while I slept actually. And I saw the weirdest dreams and I saw the weirdest things. And I kind of saw this dream just a few days ago where I kind of realized that what I saw in the dream, the beings that kind of they were, they were so fucking weird, but when the way they moved, they were actually, they were memory chips, like their structure. And I started thinking that is my computer when I see it, is it really that way, or is it just, representation? Do you get what I mean? That your reality is a representation of something else. For example, that that being that could move like that, movement and stationary, or movement and something that is like moving, you understand, like planets with planets and things that move could actually be stationary on some other reality level. Do you understand that planet Earth might be a static thing on some other level? H.G. Wells, he was born in like 1800s, is it like 1900s? whatever, 1800s, he wrote 1800s, it was like the, 1890s, something like that. And like, man, think about that. Planets, can they be stationary on some other can something that is stationary on this reality level be moving on some other reality level? Because I freaking know that the freaking memory chips in my computer, they didn't have legs and they didn't move. But in that dream, I saw this being that was clearly, it was my mind kind of like decrypting the memory structure, how the computer like represents, the sounds through, like for example, when you listen to me, if you fall asleep, I want to see how, like, can I make you see weird dreams? Can you just, if you are thinking that how am I ever gonna like go through these videos? Sleep, if you can sleep, just look how what I say will influence your dreams. I don't know if I can talk in that way that you would fall easily asleep, but if you are tired enough, just try it and look if you can see the same kind of stuff I'm trying to explain over here. So I'm pretty sure that the memory chips, on my computer, they were just, they didn't move anywhere. They were just there. But my mind, when I listen to that, my subconscious mind, because my mind, my computers haven't existed for so long, it was trying to process what is this stuff, and my mind realized that this sound is coming from a memory chip and it works like this. But the insanely cool thing was that it was moving, it was a being. It was just not, just like dead hardware. It was a fucking being, So, like, think about that. Movement created out of something that's stationary, Could the same principle be true on planets? Have we discovered a level where nothing moves? Well, don't Indian like gurus always talk about this, this truth, this cosmic ultimate reality. It has no beginning, no end, it doesn't move, it's here. But maybe it's even more deeper than that. I just want you to look at trees. And trees don't move. But are trees a memory structure? Are they actually something else than what they seem like to be? It's clear that underneath the reality you are experiencing, there's a deeper truth and a deeper level that you don't understand. And we are taking the problem is just that we are taking reality at face value. You get it? You're taking reality at face value. And it's going to fuck up your life. Because it's never what it seems. Okay. It's very deep. But it's not deep enough. It's hard. It's a really challenging thing to explain. Okay, but the problem over here is that you could say that your subconscious mind cannot be fooled, maybe. Your subconscious mind cannot be fooled if something comes out of an artificially created thing, your subconscious mind will kind of understand and see through it, or at least try to understand through it. But in the process of it trying to understand it, it's bound to create an illusion, a kind of visualization to help you get what you are seeing. And if you think about writers, they create illusions, with words. A dream, you could say it's an illusion. But like, what's the basic thing that the dream is created out of? What's the basic what's the basic thing the dream is actually created out of? This stuff that I have been explaining to you, it's probably so deep that your brain will explode, but it's really nothing, because if you really start to understand the capabilities of the human mind and of the mystery of life, you will realize that there are infinite levels of complexity and depth to the human experience and to being a human. It's just for the fact that you have to start using your brain. Your brain is the thing that can help you understand this. Your subconscious mind cannot be fooled. No. Like think about this. Think about a situation where somebody is lying that he is moving even though he's staying just at the same spot without moving an inch. Think about that. How do you actually know that planets are moving? Can you have something that is at the same time moving and not moving? Well, you can look at computer memory, for example. Well, computer memory nowadays doesn't have moving parts. And it's what's an illusion? It appears something that it's not. That kind of. But isn't it pretty weird that your subconscious mind can understand that this is not a human, even though it sounds like a human? Like, if I talk to you through this computer, your conscious mind will bite the illusion. Hey, that's you. You might come to me and say that, yeah, that was you on the video, but it wasn't me, it was your fucking computer. It wasn't me. Do you get what I mean? The fact is that who is talking to you right now, if you are listening to this, it's not me. It's your fucking computer. And if you really understand this, the experience I had was that my subconscious mind knew, it understood this is not a human being, it's something else, and it created this, this is what it kind of is, when you when you really think about it. Like, isn't that so fucking weird that the human mind can do that kind of thing? When you are asleep, when you are not even trying it. Isn't it freaking weird? I think it's weird, you know. I think it's freaking hella weird, you know. So yeah. I'm not moving at the moment, but it's possible that I am. Okay, so this is the reason why the organism or the extraterrestrial species can work as a whole so good. And why they live in perfect harmony with their environment. It's because they don't use their environment to build stuff. Their environment has been designed for them. It's also possible that there are beings that are designers, that they design the environments. That they are living in. For example, when you think about this, if you think about clothes, you know, your clothes are actually, it's actually almost impossible to make clothes that are like designed for where you live. It's just you know, for the fact that, you know, weather always changes. Clothes in general, you know, it's just it's the idea that it's never really designed for like your environment. You know, you can't really do clothes that way. I know. Human beings just, they change their, you know, temperature through this stuff, you know, like the, is it hot or is it cold? But I'm gonna say that it's kind of deeper than that when you understand that really you weren't designed for this planet. Or were you? Like, well, you can kind of ask, if you were designed for this planet, then why can't you eat some fucking grass, you know? Why can't you eat grass? I don't know. If you were designed for this fucking like planet, why do you freeze to death if you don't have fire? Like, why? Like, is there some intelligent design behind it? Is it some like lucky break from the, you know, the evolution, those people who think in the scientific way? Like, was it, what is it really all about? Well, I don't know. I have no idea. But I feel that it's just, you know, it's just one sliver of existence, you know, and there's so many different ways that consciousness can experience itself, you know, something like that. And that's why these extraterrestrial beings don't need leaders. They don't need any hierarchies, because hierarchies start with the fact that somebody thinks something first and then other people adopt it or not. Do you get what I mean? That's where hierarchies start. But these beings, they match each other. They match each other in their thought. They're just one organism, one giant mind. And human beings have some kind of weird need to kind of try to imitate, replicate this way of being in the world, but we are always almost really so bad at it. We never get it right. Like, we never actually get that right. Have you noticed? Yeah. So, here's some deep stuff for you. Thanks for watching.